So my question is very much, it's related to the question that was just asked before. So I just wrote it here, so I'll read it. And then I'll I'll touch on my own personal experience with this just slightly to give it some context. Um, so I've recently heard someone say that to fully immerse oneself in Jungian psychology is to move through the world in a way sort of as a schizophrenic does, where everything is sort of imbued with meaning and everything can be interpreted as a sign for your unconscious telling you something. Um, is this an accurate portrayal of understanding oneself through a Jungian frame? And then like the second part of that was just like through my own personal experience, I kind of had like a wake up moment recently where I realized that I feel that I'm doing that like too much, that I'm kind of
Oh,
like moving in the world in a way where like if everything truly does have meaning, that can just like overwhelm you with trying to understand everything. And then if that's not the case, then what are those signs or what are those moments of realization and what aren't?
I'm going to wreck. Thank you very much, Nicole, for your question. I'm going to wreck all your heads with some of the answers I'm going to give to this stuff because I'm going to keep defaulting into this left brain, right brain stuff. It's going to become frustrating, but it's not for no reason, because what is so interesting about the nature of these two hemispheres is that this left brain, as I said, the soldier that goes out and does your to-do list, wired full of dopamine, more dopamine receptors over here. So it gets you to do stuff. It gets you to get caught up in the plans. All right. And it's very prone. If a soldier loses connection with its general, it's very prone to panic. And it's like, I got to do this. I got to do this. It loses sense of the big picture. It makes all these elaborate plans. It's really good at making elaborate plans and steps and all this type of stuff, but it doesn't have a big picture perspective at all. All right. And so this is one of its highly common problems with this type of stuff. Your ego, your left brain, you get caught up in these silly little plans. I do it all the time. It's like, I'll do 50 videos in this topic and I'll plan them all out. And then I only ever get like one or two done, that type of thing. You know, you just get too caught up in this type of stuff. Your little perspective is trying to figure out the whole world, fit the whole world inside your ego, inside your left brain, inside the soldier's little plan. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to fit a whole war inside the soldier's little plan. Now, what this right hemisphere does, and this is so weird about it, is that you could actually understand it as like the general, and the general has like all this information coming. He's got all the intelligence agencies and all this. He gets all this information into him. And actually the way this works for you is your right brain does this with your senses, your nervous system. And weirdly, the way you can understand the right brain is like a woo-woo, you know, like you go into yoga, you see the woo-woo girl yoga teacher, and he's like, everything's energy, man. Like it's all just energy. And that's literally what this right brain is like. It's in connection with the world. It feels the world. It's completely like enriched with the world a lot more than this left brain. It has the bigger sense of the world, a bigger sense. It's like I've said before, it's like the general who's weird to all the soldiers. He goes up and he picks up all the mud and rubs it between his and smells it. And you're like, what is he doing? But it's special to him. He has a sense of things. He has a connection of things, or her, whatever you want to think. And this idea, I think, of when we have these breaks from the ego, when the ego, the left brain, whatever, it gets subverted, it realizes it's not alone in its head. The right brain comes back online, and it's kind of shocking because everything is connected. It feels everything, and this can be incredibly overwhelming. As I said, your nervous system, you store all these emotions, and someone tells themselves, I've gotten through a divorce, and you baby step them back into the felt experience of their body where they've stored all this, and then it comes up and it can freak them out. It can be such a shock because they're full of pain. They're full of pain, and it all erupts, and they have to feel it all again. And that's probably the hardest thing. But of course, this is what I believe Jung meant by the anima, is that, or the animus, whatever you want to call it, is that when you let this part of yourself erupt and you allow yourself to feel your reality again, because reality is full of pain, so you don't actually want to feel it. When you let yourself feel your reality again, this is where you start to get this sort of feeling of full of meaning, of connected with everything, that type of thing. And I certainly think there's decent evidence for this, you know? So I encourage people to integrate the unconscious and get back in touch with this type of stuff, and think, like, maybe study this right brain stuff and understand what would be perhaps more right brain things that you can balance out your left brain work with, and all this type of, because ultimately they're supposed to work together. But I would highly encourage people to operate in that type of sense, like understand that of all things, the world is full of meaning, not in any way that your left brain ego will be able to figure out. You can't just categorize and make a big plan and make a big model of the universe that will make sense. The world is full of energy, and energy is actually what gives meaning to your life. Jung called it numinosity. You know, it makes things matter to you. Do you see the way people pick up stones and they're like precious little stones and all this type of stuff? And I think that's actually the more human way to coordinate yourself. That's the type of thing I know I'm kind of getting off track a little bit here, but that's the type of way you could coordinate yourself, is understand that it's more about relationships. It's more about felt relationships with the world. It's more about developing not an intellectual categorization of the world that makes sense, because that's never going to work in the way that you're trying to do it, but on almost building a connected, energetic bridge to the world. And then, as you said, that starts to sound an awful lot like schizophrenia. But of course, if you check out my last video and look through until about 40 minutes, I start talking about the schizophrenia and the relationship to this dynamic that I'm talking about. And it's incredibly interesting how all this stuff connects. So I'm sorry I couldn't answer more comprehensively, but there is my take. Thank you very much.